Welcome everybody out to podcast number 384. Do you see bottlenecks everywhere? Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome everybody. I hope you're doing well. I'm really sorry about the podcast schedule. I appreciate you being patient. I gave everybody a warning about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, sorry, that the travel schedule would be a little bit tough. Reno and I flew back on Saturday, and boy, was it tough on all of our schedules. I'm not whining, I'm just saying it's been real tough. And so there's jet lag. The other thing I've been doing nightly trainings with Norway. So 11 o'clock p.m. and then staying up till 8 a.m. in the morning, sleeping in the day, and fitting in a little bit of time for family every day while I get these trainings done. Oh my gosh, it's been tough. So thank you for being patient with me. I'm going to get caught up on all these episodes and make sure that we're back up and running. I just really appreciate you being patient. So today's podcast, this was actually by request. This is from the Bottleneck Rules, the FOCCCUS, the FOCCUS podcast, built around bottlenecks. And it comes from the concept of find, optimize, coordinate, collaborate, curate, upgrade, and start again. That's how you identify bottlenecks. So it's going to be a really good podcast episode. I'm glad that you're with me, and I, again, just really appreciate you being patient. So if you have a project that needs to be recovered, if you need training, consulting, any of that stuff, please let us know here at Elevate Construction, especially if you have needs for tact support. If you have a question, you want to attend a boot camp or a mastermind, let me know. Actually, that's what I'm excited about in life. With Norway, we did a virtual superintendent mastermind, and it was fantastic. I mean, it really flowed. There was lots of great participation. We had some aha moments, and we're using that pedagogical concept of inviting people to get to a conclusion themselves and make their own action plan. And so it just was top notch. And actually that goes into our feedback. So on the Plus Delta, here was some of the feedback that I got. I'm happy we got to be interactive. This course makes us reflect. Really great interaction. It makes it more fun. The jokes were really great. Good leading of discussion by asking for more comments. Great music. We liked the reflections after the exercises. Visiting the rooms during the breakouts was great. The questions and answer sessions were great. The exercises were perfect. A perfect representation of variability. Let's keep going. Jason has a sweet voice, calms the whole group. I don't know if that's true or not, but this has been great. Thank you. Really great course. Learned a lot. Very interesting course. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Great inspiration. Thank you for the extremely inspirational days. Really enjoyed the course. I just want to continue forever. Come back soon. Thank you. So really great feedback from the course. Really loved it. So I hope everyone's able to get some sort of training or inspiration as they go forward in life. And I just love the way that we're able to interact and do great things together. So here's some conflict. You are letting bottlenecks slow you down. Let's increase the bottleneck's capacity. Let me tell you a story. This is actually from the Bottleneck Rules book. And he talks about the Sixth Sense. It's a movie, Bruce Willis. I can't remember the kid's name. I thought it was a great movie. And the first opening kind of plot dialogue is that the kid sees dead people. And he's like, I see dead people everywhere. And it's kind of a funny running joke because in the book he says, I see bottlenecks everywhere. Once you start to see bottlenecks, you start to see them everywhere. And now that you have a word, an acronym, a definition for bottlenecks, you start to see those things everywhere. So I thought that was kind of fun. From a visual standpoint, on a board, I like to draw bottlenecks, kind of like Niklas Modig does in his book, This is Lean. And in the book, he goes through, I think it's an airport. If you're coming into an airport, the throughput times in each area, and he draws each area larger or smaller based on the rate of throughput and draws it as one big bottle, and it shows where the bottleneck is. And the visual that I want everybody to remember in construction is that when we throw manpower, materials, and money at a problem, we're just pushing stuff against that bottleneck, which will increase the pressure, but it might not, and it actually definitely won't increase the speed. So what's the better way to increase flow? It's not to push things through a bottleneck, it's to increase the capacity of the bottleneck. And that's really the law of bottlenecks, which is that every system will have, and every construction process will have a scope that's a bottleneck. And as you optimize those bottlenecks, more bottlenecks will show up. And so I really just like that concept. I think it's really great. And that's the visual I'd like to leave you with. Now, here are some bottleneck stories. Okay, we were going through and analyzing a tact plan for some civil work. And we were looking at how could we get the work 400 linear feet of this 12-foot deep trench done in a day. By the time we were done tacting it out, it still didn't work. So we started to look for bottlenecks. So we looked at the process times for each individual activity, and we found out that the trench box was the bottleneck. If that trench box wasn't the bottleneck, they could go faster or more, they would have more flow. Let me put it like that. And when I started asking a lot of really dumb questions. Can you have 2 trench boxes and pull them in and out? Can you have 2 backhoes? No, can't do that. No, can't do that. But then the actual crews figured out, okay, if I dig the trench and then we install the pipe and at least shade it to where there's a foot of cover and leave it super level, then we can pull the trench box forward and get it out of the way and let the heel man and the mini excavator backfill the trench and use a remote control compactor, a little roller inside the trench, actually backfill the pipe without having to leave the trench box there. So even though it wasn't super easy to increase the capacity, there were some sequencing things that allowed the capacity of that bottleneck to be increased, and they increased their production. The other thing I want to say, there's a prefabrication, and it's not prefab, it's precast shop where we were looking in the facility, and this was actually in Germany, we were looking in the facility at where the bottlenecks were. And so the end of the line, there weren't really any bottlenecks. At the beginning of the line, there seemed to be some trouble, and the team pointed at this one assembly area where they assembled the precast rooms together and said, that's our bottleneck. That's where we're having trouble. And so we started to analyze that and see if that was actually true. And then it came up that no, the assembly doesn't take a long time. It's feeding the assembly. Then we found out it wasn't feeding the assembly. It's when all of the feeding activities of actual precast panels, when they were interrupted with non-room assembly panels, meaning when somebody just wanted a roof section or a rush order or something out of sequence, it would interrupt the supply chain. So we found out that the bottleneck was actually when additional rush orders came as a part of the line. It actually turns out that assembly area wasn't the bottleneck, and we were able to fix the problem. By actually looking at the root causes of things and looking at the rate of throughput per area, we were actually able to find the real bottleneck. There's a couple other ones that the examples that I could share with you, but I want to share with you one really good one, and this will be the last example that I share with you. We were in Germany. We were looking at a precast manufacturing facility where they then they painted these sections ready to ship out and to install. And we asked the question, where's the bottleneck in this facility? Because we know you're going to have to go faster. And Felipe was with me, and he pointed, he's like, well, you can see it right now. You can see all these concrete precast cylinders right here in front of the paint shop. This is your bottleneck. So they were like, oh, that's interesting. So we started to write down, what are the throughput times? How fast can you get, or how many units can you get through in a day through the paint shop? 20. How many units can you feed into the paint shop? 30. So Felipe was right. We have a bottleneck problem. So we started to ask, when do you not have a bottleneck problem? Well, when it's sunny and when we can move them outside to dry instead of keeping them on the line. So then we walked outside, and there's like 200 feet of actual, I'll just call it conveyor belt, but it's basically these huge platforms that roll on wheels that move these things around. There's like 200 feet of that outside. And the question was asked, okay, if you don't have a bottleneck when you're able to dry these things outside, on rainy days, could you let them come outside but build a canopy out here and actually have heating lamps like on all sides, like that would actually heat the paint and allow you to increase the capacity of the bottleneck? And they were like, wow, that would work. Well, what about the crane? What about this? What about that? And we're like, okay, well, you would only shade 3/4 of it so the crane could still access it. What about weather? We would tie it into the building. What about heat? We would put the lamps in there. What about? And we just kept going through it. And it seems like in that instance, we can actually increase the capacity of that bottleneck and increase the rate of throughput through the overall manufacturing facility. So I've given you a construction example, a manufacturing example, a prefabrication example, and I really think that those bear weight in helping us to start to see bottlenecks the way that we could. So the formula for the FOCCCUS, the FOCCUS formula for the theory of constraints, goes like this. Number one, we need to identify the constraint or the bottleneck. We need to start asking questions. And the rule of thumb that I'm going with lately is let's break down each steps in the process and figure out how much time each step in the process takes. Usually I can find the bottleneck like that, just at the click of my fingers. Second, optimize. Focus on the work of the bottleneck and find ways to squeeze more out of it or to increase the capacity of that bottleneck. So that was nicely shown with the trench box example, with the paint shop example, that we need to find ways to optimize those by either readjusting the sequence, readjusting the logistics, whatever. Then coordinate. That's step number 3. Coordinate the non-bottlenecks so they can help make the most use of the bottleneck. So in the trench box example, we utilized the heel man, the rear workers, with the mini excavator and an additional piece of equipment. We coordinated other scopes, workers, and pieces of equipment resources to help the actual bottleneck, which was the trench box. So 3, coordinate. 4, collaborate. Work together to find out how the non-bottlenecks can help the bottlenecks without cutting corners. So that's the same thing. Once we coordinate, we collaborate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, curate. Reduce the demand on the bottleneck, meaning focus on increasing the capacity. So in the example of the precast shop, where we were having trouble feeding the assembly area, we found out there was too much demand on that actual process. And so what they're going to have to do is cast the roof sections and rush orders either in a different shop or in a different line so they can keep a consistent throughput in feeding the actual assembly area where they assemble the rooms. So reduce the demand on the bottleneck. This says no. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6, upgrade. Upgrade the resource or replace it with a bigger, faster model. So we could just redo the entire paint shop manufacturing facility. We could upgrade the lines in the precast manufacturing facility. We could find a way to get a trench box that could be loaded in and out. You could upgrade the pieces of equipment and see if that would help. And then finally, number 7, find new bottlenecks in the process. So once you've found them, optimized them, coordinated them, collaborated, curated, upgraded, then you have expanded or increased the capacity of the bottleneck, and you need to focus somewhere else because new bottlenecks will show up in the system. Now, here's the current condition. We have bottlenecks everywhere. And right now, we're not going through the process of identifying and fixing them. We're just living with them. And then a superintendent or a project manager will say, give me more manpower, materials. Let's rush. Let's push. Let's throw money at the problem. And all they're doing is pushing against a bottleneck, which no matter how hard they push, it will not increase the flow of the project or the throughput of the system or the production of the system. Sometimes it actually slows it down because once you push, you have a backlog of pressure and a buildup, which takes more effort, and it actually just slows down the entire system. So we need to be increasing the capacity of bottlenecks, not trying to push through them. Just like the pull the knot through the hole or rabbit through the rabbit hole, or I can't remember all the sayings, but don't push through the bottleneck, fix and increase the capacity of the bottleneck. The other thing is, from a challenge standpoint, I would say I give you a challenge. The next 5, I'd like you to find 5 bottlenecks. When you come to your office or you go to work, see if you can just take a process. It can be accounting. It can be the maintenance of equipment. It can be the digging of a trench. It could be anything, but go find the bottleneck in whatever process. Go find 5 of them and get used to it. And then you'll just start seeing bottlenecks everywhere. And as you see bottlenecks everywhere, then you'll start to optimize them. You'll go through the find, optimize, coordinate, collaborate, curate, upgrade, start again, focus formula, and really increase the flow of your organization. It's really cool. So that's the challenge that I'd like to give you, is that you get to a point where you have eyes to see bottlenecks everywhere. I hope this podcast has been helpful. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.